Unless you get out super early for this sort of thing, you can just hear Big Ben ringing in the background for 10 o'clock, I think it is, 10 o'clock. I've left my coffee behind me, I'm going to go back and drink it in a minute. Don't pee in it, yeah? Yeah, unless you get out down here super early, you don't get to see the strange person in a green frock with the pentagram around their neck.
Death. I'm representing the death of Syria.
Oh God.
So I'm the Syrian Grim Reaper, or the Skull of Syria is my alias.
So it's fairly calm here at the moment, to be honest. Apart from all the pigeons. Oh my God. Don't panic. Look at that. So by all accounts, in an hour or so, there's going to be a horrendous amount of people here. Originally it said about 2,000. Traffic reports from TfL say maybe 5,000 people are going to be marching here from here today. And it is organised by the Syria Solidarity Campaign. If you class yourself as normal, you may not be aware that what you're being told is happening in Syria has quite some disparity with what may actually be happening in Syria. The psychological operation has gone like full steam. I personally think that it's because there's going to be a new president of America and the window is closing to establish certain imperial or neo-imperial goals. They perceive anyway that the window might be closing. And of course the news is essentially just rife with conspiracy theory about Russia's involvement to the point where the media are almost framing Donald Trump as like an evil Russian agent, which is surely that should be enough when people see that sort of thing on the news to start them questioning whether or not reality is being portrayed to them through the mainstream media. Doesn't seem particularly filled with reality, does it? Now the people who are now starting to turn up actually in earnest here at Marble Arch are here to essentially show solidarity with Syria. It's the Syrian Solidarity Campaign, which essentially is where the rabbit hole begins. If you start really looking into what's going on in Syria, you'll start to find out that the original Syrian Solidarity Campaign was essentially pushing for completely opposite goals to the current Syria Solidarity Campaign. It is very confusing, but essentially there's been a copy-paste, a pasting over of reality. The original Syria Solidarity Campaign was calling out the fact that the West were arming and training terrorists who push for regime change, and the original Syria Solidarity Campaign was calling out the White Helmets for being a sort of proxy imperial force and essentially just a medical unit for the terrorists. And then something strange happened when a new organisation, also calling itself the Syria Solidarity Campaign, was sort of copy-pasted over the top and promoted to the point where if you sort of start to look it up, you really get plastered with the arguments of these guys up here and not so much the reality that was shown before. Really, you could argue that the Metropolitan Police should not allow this protest to go ahead, essentially because the Syria Solidarity Campaign is aligned with what they called Ara al-Sham, who have objectives that read exactly the same as the Islamic State. So this protest is in a lot of ways actually promoting the idea of support for terrorism. But the police will not shut it down because of course support for terrorism is exactly what the Western Allied forces have been doing for a good, 50 years now? Of course a lot of the signs down there are saying things like peace for Syria, Well, this is the way that propaganda works. Propaganda, it is said in the literature, cannot change people's minds. It latches on to ideas that are already there. So these people will argue for peace in Syria. What they don't realise that if they ask for peace from the Western neo-imperialists, peace means becoming aligned with the project for a one world global system, the enforcement of peace through the eradication of nation states. It's only if you know this town as well as I do nowadays that you can really understand what the hell's going on with things like this. Because, believe me, I've seen many protests starting from Marble Arch. And I can promise you that just about every protest, if not just like every protest, goes from Marble Arch, down Park Lane, down Piccadilly towards Trafalgar Square, and then they eventually go down Whitehall. And that's to basically minimise the chaos that might happen because of it. This particular march, however, is almost in an almost unprecedented way going to be going down Oxford Street and then down Regent Street, the heart of the shopping district, on the second busiest shopping day before Christmas. And that is, of course, to maximise the propagandistic effect that this march may have upon the British public. I'm not sure how well I captured it up there, but you see the two guys standing on top of the lion shouting Allahu Akbar. I think it's quite illustrative, and it's a good thing to bear in mind that the Syria Solidarity Campaign, one of their demands is that Syrian refugees get unconditional entry into Britain. Unconditional entry. Does that sound like a good idea?
Our children are being slaughtered in front of us, and the humanity is watching. Our brothers in humanity are watching. Dear Lord, those, the guardians of human rights, have dropped us off their list. We are not human. Dear Lord, we are not on the human rights list.
They're now going to read from the Quran. I'm not going to stick around for that. I've listened to enough mind control programming for one day. One of the things that should be really obvious, really, when talking about Syria, is that the other day they were so-called evacuating the people out of East Aleppo. They were evacuating the people out of East Aleppo, and East Aleppo is controlled by the rebels, or the terrorists. The rest of Aleppo controlled by the Syrian government. So they were evacuating the people out of rebel-held areas into the government areas. Now, why would people want to leave the rebel-held areas and go into the government areas? Surely if the mainstream media narrative was accurate, people would instead be evacuating out of the government-held areas into the rebel-held areas, wouldn't they? Call me stupid. I mean, I'm no major fan of Stop the War Coalition, but I think it's quite illustrative of what's going on here with this group, the Syrian Solidarity Campaign, that Stop the War Coalition have essentially abandoned them, and they're now not friends with them whatsoever, because Stop the War Coalition are sort of philosophically against Western imperialism and foreign intervention and foreign troops in the foreign land and all that kind of stuff. They are completely against all of those things that have been seen to happen in various Middle Eastern countries now, whereas these guys, they are literally the propaganda arm for the Western imperial project. These guys want a no-fly zone, they want Western intervention, and they want the removal of Assad. How do they really think that the West would remove Assad? Do they think they would just ask him nicely and he'd disappear? No. They're essentially talking about Western control over Syria. That doesn't really sound anti-war to me.